freedom of choice. The right or ability to choose whatever you want to do or have. It is something I believe is a must-have for an FPS to make sure the gameplay never gets stale or boring. And one game from 2007 stands out from the rest. You could probably guess which one it is based on my previous uploads. Team Fortress 2 was very unique at the time, with 9 selectable classes that each had different playstyles and strategies. But it was lacking one thing that would truly make it into one of the most memorable and unique first-person shooters of all time. Once you played all the classes for long enough, things would begin to feel very samey, if that's a word I can use. I didn't start playing TF2 until 2012, but I was younger at the time and only played in offline mode with just bots. No, not that kind, it's the training bots. And I did that for quite a while. That meant no unlocks and I was stuck playing with just the stock loadouts. When I finally did start playing more online matches, it felt like such a breath of fresh air to play with new weapons I unlocked, that I could completely alter how I played the game as I knew it. And I can imagine that was how the majority of players felt when on April 29th, 2008, the Gold Rush update was released and introduced 3 new weapons for the medic: the Blutsauger, the Kritzkrieg, and the Ubersaw. Over the course of the next 2 years or so, each of the classes got their own new unlocks with their own individual updates, or in the case of the War update and the Sniper vs Spy update, 2 classes at once. But what made these weapon unlocks so important, you may ask? Well, it's complicated and can vary from player to player, but I think a main reason is that people like new things and having variety. Let's use food for an example. Imagine you have a sandwich, and you ate that same type of sandwich every day for the next year. Doesn't sound very exciting, does it? Now what if every day for the next year you had something different? One day it's fish, the next day it's a nice juicy steak, and the next it's, apple juice. That sounds more appealing to me than just having the same boring sandwich every day. It applies to TF2 as well, though not quite as delicious as the previous examples. One match you could play Demo Night, and the next you are playing Battle Medic. Sure, it's fun to play the meta and top score most matches, but it gets stale after a while, and something we all just want is to do a little trolling. This was nice for Valve as well, when they were still, cough cough, actively working on Team Fortress 2. Because they didn't have to bother adding another class that could potentially ruin their perfectly balanced relationship with each class that they had with each other. You know, how Pyro counters Spy and Demo Man counters Engineer. They could just add individual weapons to each class that they could easily nerf or buff in later updates. This offers more freedom to the player by letting them choose their own loadout that fits the way they want to play, instead of just adding a 10th icon you can click on in the class selection menu. To prove my point, let's look at Heavy for example. Overall, his stock loadout is pretty solid, but we can improve on it. We could go the meta route and use the Tomislav sandwich and Gru, or we could go wacky and use, let's say, the Brass Beast, Buffalo Steak Sandwich, and Warrior Spirit. That sounds like absolute garbage, but you have the option to use it if you want. No one is stopping you. Real quick, can we get a quick justice for the Buffalo Steak? I think it's a very fun gimmick item that can work in certain situations. Now, we looked at the positives of allowing absolute freedom of loadout choices, but there are some downsides to this. If you ever watch DugDug's video, Overwatch vs TF2, but explained with food, you will understand what I will be about to explain next. But if you haven't, quick side note, you really should watch it. It's a great video. Anyways, the loadout freedom works in a game like TF2 because each class was designed to be able to work independently from one another and did not have a heavy focus on teamwork. However, a game like Overwatch was carefully designed to be played by having the entire team work together and play their roles. This doesn't leave a lot of room to experiment because if you play a tank, your role is the team's tank. You can't just decide to go and run at people with a shotgun and eat a sandwich. This doesn't mean Overwatch is a bad game. In fact, there are a lot of mechanics in Overwatch that are really fun and I enjoy. But Blizzard's answer to freshening up gameplay was to add more classes, and it eventually became a cluttered mess of so many characters it can be very disorienting for a new player playing for the first time. I'm of the opinion you should keep your FPS games roster to a minimum, because if you have one character for a specific role, it's easier for new players to learn the game's mechanics while also leaving room for them to experiment with other weapons or items when they unlock them that the character can use. Because at the end of the day, video games are about having fun, and by adding wacky items to meme, it adds that fun and freshness that is not only needed to keep a game alive, but to keep you invested in a game. And that, my friends, is the genius of Team Fortress 2's Loadout system. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.